right. Good morning to you all. Looks like we got people coming into the main room for this webinar this morning. Welcome, Gary, Christy, Megan. Great to have you here with us. Good morning, Tony. We'll get underway very, very shortly. Hello, Amy. We've got quite a few. Catherine, how are you? Jess, good to see you. We've got quite a few people popping in. Sally, welcome to you. And to Kerry as well. Fantastic to have you all here. Andrew, good morning. Little message to go into the chat window. I want to encourage you as we get underway to use the chat window to share your thoughts, perhaps leave your questions, add some contributions, a couple of little exercises that we're going to go through this morning, give you a sense of our Crucial Influence program. So good morning and welcome to everyone. My name is Brad Rylett. I'm the Learning Experience Lead here at Crucial Dimensions and one of our master trainers. And I'm going to take you through this wonderful material ever so briefly. Got about 45 minutes for this webinar this morning. It won't do it justice. It will give you a sense and a taste of what Crucial Influence is as a learning experience for you and your people. So let's get right underway. As it says on the screen, if behavior isn't changing, you're not leading. Thank you to my wonderful friend Joseph Grenny for that challenging thought. This is the notion that we use as we step into our influence, how people show up in our organizations in the future, the true test of leadership. So what are we going to do today? Well, first of all, I'll introduce you to Crucial Dimensions. We've been working as the exclusive licensee for all the crucial learning programs and solutions, learning solutions for the last 14 odd years. All the training that we deliver around the world and certainly here in Australia and New Zealand is evidence-based and largely built out of 20 to 40 years of research in the social and the behavioural sciences. Today, we're going to focus in on the Crucial Influence program, give you a little bit of a preview of that. And here's the outline. Why do we need crucial influence? We often ask ourselves that question. And what's our common approach to trying to influence people's behavior in your organization? We would suggest to you a new mindset will bring a new practice. And that's what I want to introduce you to today. Sample some of the learning experience. We've got a little piece from the training program around diagnosing why people do what they do and how they show up in organizations every day. And then we'll look at the delivery outline. What's it like to implement this in your organization going forward? So to do that, what I want to do is introduce you to my good friend of some 25 years, Joseph Grenny. I've been working with him many, many years now, as I just mentioned, and he's one of the co-authors, one of the founders, co-founders of our organization internationally. He's going to share with you in this brief video, it goes about 5 or 6 minutes, a brief introduction to what this world of leadership influence is all about. So let's press on with that video. I think we've got about 15 people in the webinar at the moment. We are recording this, so let's have a listen to what Joseph is going to share with us. Here we go.
There is no plan so brilliant that humans can't find a way to mess it up. As a leader, you can map out multi-year strategies, craft superb initiatives, and articulate a brand promise. But you won't achieve anything if you can't influence people to carry out those plans. Leadership is intentional influence. If behavior isn't changing, you aren't leading. For example, we watched a formerly legendary manufacturer go under because leaders were ineffective at mobilizing employees to make obvious improvements in quality and cost. Most everyone knew what needed to be done to regain competitive health, but for years, nothing changed. A healthcare leader we know was trying to reduce the number of patients who acquired infections during hospital stays. It involved simple behaviors like hand washing. For years, she couldn't get more than half of her people to do it consistently. Can you imagine the frustration? If you're a leader, you've experienced the same thing. Your best plans made or broken by human behavior. We've spent the last 30 years studying the best social science research to understand why people do what they do. We've traveled the world to observe leaders who successfully tackled persistent challenges that required people to change entrenched behaviors. One influential leader we met was Patty Simpson, the Chief People Officer for Union Square Hospitality Group, home to some of the most renowned restaurants in New York City, including Union Square Cafe, 11 Madison Park, and Gramercy Tavern. Not only do they maintain world-class customer ratings, but they retain employees at a rate that is the envy of their industry. We asked Patty what she attributes this remarkable record to. We wouldn't have been surprised if she pointed to delicious food, stunning amenities, or creative formats. She didn't. She emphatically claimed that their success comes down to crucial moments that happen every day, moments like this. Maria was managing the dinner shift at one of their famed restaurants when an employee stormed out. She discovered that Luca, a cook, had made a very rude comment to this fellow employee. Maria was upset and frustrated. Luca was a talented cook who had fallen into a recent pattern of treating his colleagues terribly. Maria started to march over to Luca to explain where the line was and just how far he had crossed over it. Then she paused. Patty believes one of her most important leadership responsibilities is to influence what happens next. She knows how managers respond when people mess up shapes her culture. Patty's distinguishing talent is her capacity to influence hundreds of managers to consistently step into these moments in a way that maintains both high accountability and profound care. In most organizations, managers like Maria would handle patterns like this with unbridled frustration or silence. With the first approach, employees become alienated, and with the second, a culture of permissiveness takes hold. Patty influences every manager to adopt two vital behaviors: make a charitable assumption and write a great next chapter.
Our managers now are spending a lot more time holding people accountable. So if someone's not doing what they need to do, chances are there's something bigger than that going on in their world. And the best thing you can do is just say, hey, let's talk. What do you need? How can I help you? And right now, like, everyone's a walking, story. The road to success is paved with mistakes well handled. This is how we do things.
After a long pause, Maria concluded this wasn't the Luca she'd hired. Maria approached Luca and calmly and respectfully asked, "What's going on?" She discovered some things Luca's family was going through that she hadn't known. Turns out he wasn't a jerk. He was tired, stressed, and hopeless. With this new understanding, Maria made it clear that while his behavior wasn't acceptable, she understood what contributed to it. She gave Luca some much-needed time away to address his family struggles. When he came back, he was different. He was open to coaching and changed how he dealt with people. The care and coaching Maria gave provided the stepping stones on which Luca grew to a lead and then a manager. It's not unusual for an organization to have an outstanding employee like Maria. Some employees just happen to do exemplary things. What's different about Patty is that she's deliberate about influencing hundreds of managers to consistently act like Maria in the moments that make or break a high-performance culture. Like the leaders we studied, you have big things you want to accomplish. Maybe you have critical projects you want to execute flawlessly, or you want every patient at your hospital to get exactly the care they need in the most caring way possible. Maybe you have a marketing campaign you hope brings your products to entirely new customers. Or you simply want the teenagers in your classroom to stop taking selfies and engage in the lesson. Whatever your goals, you want to make the world better. But you won't achieve any of this if you can't influence the behavior of human beings. And that, after all, is leadership. Simply put, leadership is intentional influence in the service of accomplishing important results.
Thank you, Joseph. And so let me encourage you all to give some consideration to what are some of the big things you're wanting to achieve, perhaps in 2025 in your organization, and be so bold as to share a few of those things, just the headlines, of course, in the chat with us today. What are some of the big things that you're trying to achieve over the next 12 plus months in your organization? And so let's, with that said, and with that encouragement, let's step into a little bit more of this. As Joseph shared, just very briefly, influence is the ability to change behavior in the service of an important goal. What are your important goals? Leadership is intentional efforts. If behavior isn't changing, you're doing something else. You're not leading. The way I like to put it is this: leaders influence the future, managers control the present. And sometimes the way we control the present has an influence, an unintended, consequential influence in how people show up in the future. So the point I want to make here is we all have a model of influence we use to try to change behavior, not only other people's, but ours as well. And the problem is that these models are terribly incomplete. And so our efforts don't tend to work. They don't tend to last either. So let's have a look at some of the typical potential challenges that we hear from our clients over the last many years. Thank you for your post there, Christy. I'll come to that in just a moment. Here are some of the potential challenges that we hear about. Pardon me. People trying to take accountability, establish ownership, connect more in a virtual environment. What does that look like, and how do people show up? Cameras on, cameras off, etc. Collaborate and communicate more effectively. We hear this all the time, but what does more effectively mean? How does that show up in behavior and language? It's a rather vague description at times, and so we pursue all sorts of things, not really landing. Using a new process or a new technology, that's something we're all facing at the moment. Aligning with change initiatives and transformation strategies. We hear the language, we're not sure what that might mean for our people as they show up every day. To report safety violations and to create a more diverse and inclusive culture where our intellectual diversity, our emotional, our social diversity actually can play a strong and rigorous part in advancing the interests of your business enterprise. Thank you, Shane, for sharing yours as well. So Christy and Shane have both shared some of the things they're trying to achieve, the big goals, and they are significant, aren't they? So here we go. What are your challenges? Let's look at it this way. Again, I encourage you to add to the group chat. Here are a couple of big questions. How do those challenges, for example, Christy and Shane's, how do these challenges impact the organization? What does that mean in terms of activity and effort? Is it aligned? Is it fragmented? Is it integrated? That effort, that energy, and that resource and talent. And what might be the cost if we don't manage to or successfully influence behavior change to support those efforts and those goals? Just take a moment to pop your thoughts into the chat. Fantastic. Happy owners, more sales, I hear, Shane. Very good. And thank you. And Christy, how do you get your people to be more influential, your management team, your senior leaders to be more influential in the organization and across the organization? Yeah, I hear you, Christy. We're not fully harnessing our potential. We're getting something less. There's a gap, right? This is our full potential, and something less is showing up. Catherine, thank you. Managers have a conversation with the staff rather than complain about their behaviour. Absolutely. We just need to create the safety to have that conversation, of course, and do it both honestly and respectfully so that we can take that information, take that data, take that feedback about our experience together and move forward in a productive and respectful and enjoyable way. Thank you, Megan. Influencing up may be needed or we stagnate. Very, very spot on. Very, very important comment there. Thank you, Megan. Stagnation or complacency in the culture. Thank you. Poor behavior, conversations become commonplace and accepted. Yes. So one of the things we like to say is in terms of culture, in terms of how the cultural operating system of your enterprise or organization shows up to enable the technical or functional nature of a bank or a hospital or a local government or a mining operation or whatever it might be, is what do you celebrate and what do you tolerate? Joseph mentioned in that video the permissiveness we permit. In other words, we tolerate behaviors that don't help us. So what are the aspects of your organization that you and your leadership kind of celebrate, which is great, and tolerate, which is not so great. There's a bit of a gap that you want to try and close. Thank you, Shane. Employee satisfaction, retention, sharing and caring, etc. Thank you, Chrissy, as well. Thank you for that. Jess, clearer career pathways. Lovely. That sounds wonderful, Jess. Looks like you've got quite a lot there to deal with in the development progress in the context of a very busy public health system. Very, very busy, very strong demand on that health system for both clinical and other forms of support. Yep, losing staff, cost of losing staff, so retention and various other elements become significant. So some wonderful big challenges there. And the question always is, as leaders, how will you influence people to show up in ways that support rather than hold you back from those wonderful goals and big important outcomes? Thank you, Carolyn. Having staff move from being managers to being leaders. It is a very significant kind of transition. And yet, as I often say to the people who join us at Crucial Influence, you've only got to think about what it's like in your own personal and family life, where you're taking on that dual role of managing today and also influencing how people show up in the family or the community that you're a part of in the future. We do both things. We're just very mindful of it. So let's have a look at this. Thank you, Sally. Yes, career pathways and workload. Fantastic. All right, moving us along. Let me just share briefly some of our global research. We did a leadership study recently, spoke with, engaged with 3,300 people around the planet. And these are some of the things that they were looking for: collaborate, communicate more effectively across teams, take accountability and ownership, start using a new process of technology that we mentioned, engage more in their work and their team, and of course, create a more diverse and inclusive organizational culture. So there's some of the things that you've already mentioned in the chat. So let's see what they're struggling with, where the problems are that are getting in the way of those desired goals and outcomes, that kind of leadership impact. Lower productivity is what they're experiencing, employee satisfaction, a wastage of time and resource and talent, decreased quality and lower customer satisfaction. And when we probed a little further, we got these kinds of numbers that of that 3,300 people, 62% of them said that these problems, these impediments and barriers were persisting for a year or more. And nearly a third said that this has been persisting for over 3 years or more. What an amazing handbrake on the performance of the organization enterprise. So with that in mind, here's one way of presenting this as a problem to face as leaders. One of the most important capacities we do possess is that to change behavior. And in my experience, it starts with me. How will I change my behavior as a leader in order to influence that of others? How they might change their behavior. Now, here's the challenge. Most of us don't have a fairly robust, evidence-based, rigorous, and substantial, comprehensive model of how to do that. And so one of the things we focus very heavily on in the Crucial Influence program is sharing with you the skills to make that transition from a manager controlling the present to a leader influencing how people show up in the future. And that requires a shift of thinking and a shift of practice that transforms the way you lead. So let's have a look at the model itself, and then we'll step into a little bit of an opportunity to practice one of the skills, at least a very light touch anyway, in the short time we have today. This is a Crucial Influence model on screen for you right now. And as you can see, there are three big elements. And some of you have already, thank you very much, mentioned in the chat the results you're trying to achieve. And it's very important that they are clear and measurable results. They can't just be a vague statement of intent. These need to be clear and measurable results. And that's quite an important first step. The second thing is to look at identify the vital behaviors that will help you get there. But there's a step in front of that, which is to understand why the world is working the way it is right now, and what is driving, what's influencing some of these problematic behaviors that you might be experiencing right now. The status quo, less desirable behaviors that literally are holding you back from that result. And then, of course, we look at the 6 sources of influence. So this is a wonderful body of social science and practice, which helps us to diagnose what's going on now, what's holding us back. And then, of course, what do we need to do in order to influence people to engage in a handful, just a few very, very high leverage vital behaviors at some of those crucial moments that Joseph mentioned earlier on in the video. So that's the model in its entirety. And for the simplicity, there's a lot of depth for the practitioner to get into. So let's have a look at what it might be to diagnose. And I'm going to put a problem in front of you in just a moment and see if you can work independently. Normally we would try and do this together as a cohort or a group of leaders, but let's do this independently on this platform. Why are people behaving the way they're behaving is the important question. And so let me give you an example. Here's a problem. You're frustrated with one of your employees. Let's call him Brad for the sake of the exercise, yours truly. And I'm always turning up late to meetings, whether they're virtual or in person. And then I make a bit of a joke to dismiss the awkwardness once I arrive. This disrupts the meeting and distracts other people. And it's been going on for some time. We've talked about this before and several times, but my behavior continues. There's a pattern of behavior here, and you're starting to lose your patience. So before you blow up, perhaps like Maria might have thought before she was talking to Luca in that example video that Joseph just shared, in the chat, please add your thoughts. What's the first thing that comes to your mind as to why Brad continues to show up late and be disruptive at your meetings? What's your thinking? Yep. Thank you, Megan. I see no value in the meeting. At least that's what you believe. Yeah, I understand. Shane says, I'm disengaged. Yeah, maybe. Don't really get excited, don't really care. Disengaged. Thank you, Shane. Other thoughts? Busy, unorganized. Thank you, Quinn. They aren't sure about their contribution. Use the lateness and jokes to cover that. Yeah, absolutely. Sounds perfectly reasonable, Christy. What else is going on for Brad? That's a great question, Tony. Thank you. Very good question. Trying to disguise something, yes. Disorganized, yep. The timing of the meeting. Wonder if he prioritizes the meeting. Is it important to him? Travel time, thanks, Joshua. A lot going on at work, embarrassed about it, try to shrug it off instead of addressing it. So all of these wonderful descriptions. Too many meetings. Hello, Gary. I can understand that one only too well. I'm sure many of you can. So let's look at it, fairly simplistically at this in the short time we have. So people do what they do for a couple of reasons. You and I typically do whatever we do and say what we say for a couple of reasons. One, we want to, and two, we can. We're motivated and we're able. They're the two fundamentals, motivation and ability. And many of you are only too well aware of that. So because I want to and because I can, though, there's some forces that contribute to that. So let's look at that in a bit more detail. The problem is we often assume that persistent behavior has one cause, typically motivation, so much so that psychologists call it the fundamental attribution error. We fundamentally attribute one reason or one rationale for Brad behaving the way he behaves, or someone in your world doing what they're doing. And it's because he's not motivated. Personal motivation is suffering. I don't care. I'm lazy. I'm disorganized. I'm not particularly interested. I'm disengaged. So we're going to look at this 6 sources of motivation and ability as a diagnostic lens. So that you can ask the kind of questions that I think, Tony, you were getting at earlier on. What else is going on for Brad in his world? And this is true for teams as well as individuals. Okay, so let's have a look at the 6 source model. This is a way more comprehensive kind of model to consider. Now we're talking about, will it be worth it for Brad to behave in a way that's consistent with what's expected or needed? And does he know how to? Does he know how to complete that process? Does he have the skills, the requisite abilities? Does he have the strength and the resilience sometimes when it's otherwise stressful or demanding? So we've got motivation driving Brad's engagement. Now it's a matter of personal values and beliefs and sense of value and importance, as we mentioned. But can Brad do what's required? Can I turn up and be engaged in meetings in a timely manner, in a respectful way that also engages and embraces other people? And then secondly, what about these other 3 forces, the personal, social, and structural? So we need to bring all of these together. So we're talking in the social, for example, peer pressure, and we're also talking about teamwork, help and assistance, or hindrance. Do we get in each other's way? Here's a wonderful question that I frequently ask people to go and consider asking to the people in their lives, professionally and personally. What's it like for you, that other person in your life, with me in your life? What's it like for you with me as part of your life? Is a powerful question to ask, and it seeks feedback, right? Now, you've got to be prepared to hear the feedback, of course, and you need to listen to that feedback in a way that's curious rather than judgmental. So, anyway, there's more to this than meets the eye. So, in this area of social forces, are people encouraging or discouraging the needed or desired behavior? Are people helping? Are they hindering? Are they enabling or disabling the desired behavior? And so there's a lot to that as well to work through. And then, of course, those first four are all human sources of influence. The last two are non-human in nature. Think objects, think environment, think the world of things, the inanimate, if you will. So rewards and punishments. It's your remuneration system. It's your economic rewards and penalties and punishments. And then, of course, to some degree that will motivate. And then, of course, you've got this other array of wonderful influences. We're talking about the physical world, the environment. We're talking about information. We're talking about documents, tools such as technology, computers, the internet, etc. We're talking about, pardon me, all manner of information reminders, policies, procedures, job instructions, and so forth and so on, that guide our behavior every day. And so, with that as a diagnostic lens, you're able to, I guess, in many ways, go back to Tony Hancock. So, Tony, you said, what else is possibly going on? And you can use that as a framework, not just for an individual conversation, but between teams that serve one another in the interests of your community or in the interests of the services you deliver to a customer or indeed a market. So let's move this forward. And as we say diagnostically, if you look at this interesting graphic with one person pointing upwards and everyone following the arrow and looking up, your world is perfectly organized right now to create and sustain the very behaviors you're currently having a problem with, you're currently experiencing, that you regard as problematic, that are holding you back from those big goals you identified earlier on in the chat. So, with that in mind, let's press on to our next slide, implementation. How do we bring this course to life through and with you in your organization, this learning? And it's a very pragmatic kind of learning. It is also something that you can workshop very, very more substantially in your enterprise with your leader cohorts going forward. And so this is what we typically do. It's typically designed for leaders whose role requires them to change the behavior, at least influence the behavior of individuals and groups to achieve a desired collective result, a corporate result, an organizational outcome or impact for those you serve. Leaders who face a situation where they need people to execute mission today, innovate in readiness for the unknown tomorrow, the future, comply or even align their actions with a new plan or a new strategy. As it's often been said, there's no strategy. It's strategy. Sorry, culture is strategy for breakfast every day, kind of thing. The old Peter Drucker quote. And then lastly, of course, individuals whose role requires them to informally lead. So, for example, cross-functional teams that might be working on the execution of strategy, where they don't have the sort of vertical delegated power and authority. What they have is this influence. They need this influence with stakeholder groups that are contributing to a corporate or collective initiative. And they don't have that delegated power, that structural power and authority. They need to work with more influential, relational-based influence. So that's who this is focused on. It's a one-day program. Our training is whole day. Here's the course outline. We spend five modules, and thank you, Joshua. Yes, I do hear you, and thanks again for joining us, Joshua. So leadership is influence. We start talking about leadership, what influence is, about changing behavior, etc., and what kind of results you're trying to achieve. And it takes a little bit of time to work out what the clear, not vague, clear and measurable results are. How will you measure your progress, and how will you actually measure achievement, and then measure the maintenance or the sustainment of that? Clarifying vital behaviors is a really challenging piece. I've found I've been working with this model now for 15 years around this country and overseas. And I've got to tell you right now, it's not easy, this second piece. The vital few, not the sort of normal many behaviors. And we've done this in many different industries and sectors of the community, organizations of all shapes and forms around the world, to great effect. Now, let me just give you a couple of sort of clues. Clarifying vital behaviors requires you also to understand what Joseph referred to in that video as crucial moments. Now, to use the social science, these are moments of disproportionate influence and impact upon behavior individually and collectively in the service of an important goal or an outcome, as Joseph mentioned. And I'll just give you a quick example of some of those crucial moments. These are true in a hospital. These are true in an education department or in a school or in a community group as much as they are in mining or banking or any other form of enterprise, technology companies, for example. Moments of disappointment, moments of disagreement, moments of misunderstanding, moments of fatigue, and moments of distraction. Just imagine those five alone. If you could just focus on those five and work out what's influencing people to show up in the ways that are generally unhelpful, and then design influence strategies using the six source model I just shared with you, so that when those moments occur, people are almost inevitably going to enact the desired vital behavior that will take you to the destination you seek. That is, I'm not going to say the secret sauce, but that's the science, that's the rigor, that's the discipline here. Then we do the diagnosis. You've had a bit of a play with that this morning. And then we look at the whole six sources of influence to build those strategies, those influence strategies at a corporate collective level, at a team level. And this can even, of course, be applied at a one-on-one performance management kind of level. And then we pull it all together with an influence plan. So that's the nature of the one-day program. And it's very much tailored to what you're trying to achieve in your organization. So some of the skills that we learn are here on screen for you. Skills to influence to transform the way you lead, change, and achieve future results. So it's about influencing the future rather than controlling the present. What's influencing current unhelpful behaviors, and why rapid sustainable change seems apparently difficult, if not impossible. And of course, why we have this pattern of repetition. The behaviors that will generate the results you want. As I said, this is quite a challenging piece, but it's entirely doable, as many have found. And then, of course, the engagement of the whole six sources of influence around those behaviors. So how do we work with you? Fairly straightforward. We offer a public program. We do a one-day public program, and that's delivered by myself or one of my colleagues here at Crucial Dimensions. We offer you in-house programs. These are obviously done in person or virtually online. Again, it's a one full day program, but it can be broken up over 2 days as well, quite comfortably. And of course, we can do that for you if that's appropriate. And then, of course, the other way, which a lot of our clients love, is we certify people inside your organization. So they'll go through the program to start with, then we work with them an additional day or two to get them ready to facilitate the same learning experience for your own people internally, which obviously gives you much more flexibility and lowers your unit delivery costs as well. Very popular and very cost effective. Okay, so let's just have a quick saying to wrap up now. So please add your thoughts and comments or any questions you may have into the chat. In 2025, next year, we're going to be offering our crucial consulting services, one of which is our applied leader influence service. And this is where we assist your leaders to implement the change and transformation across your cultural operating system, your workforce, and of course, your entire enterprise to help you enjoy the results that you need to enjoy in 2025 and beyond. And our experience tells us that generally when you can engage a minimum of four, ideally all six. So I'll just quickly remind you of what that means. When you can engage a minimum of four, ideally all six of these wonderful sources of influence on human behavior, when you can do that successfully, you are 1,000% or 10 times more likely to succeed in that rapid and sustainable change or transformation of your workforce in the service of an important goal, mission, or outcome in the future. So, in that case, the challenging piece is how quickly can that be achieved? Well, fundamentally, that's up to you. What we've experienced in healthcare, in local government, in mining, for example, just three sectors to give you a quick suggestion. And what we have experienced, and we have evidence around the world of this as well, because we teach this around the world, is that 9, 12 to 18 or 24 months, that 1 to 2 year sort of horizon is completely realistic. You'll start to see the kind of change you're looking for in approximately 9 months. And then you'll start to see it embedded and become normalized and routine and celebrated, and with a lot less being tolerated, but a lot more being celebrated around these vital behaviors in the next year. So, 9 to 18 months is completely realistic and achievable. Once again, though, I'll say it, caveat emptor, it's really going to be up to you and your colleagues how much time, energy, and change in your own leadership approach you're willing to invest in that kind of a result. So we'll be doing that in 2025. We'll be offering that to all of our clients, our wonderful clients, and the market generally. Our next Crucial Influence public courses are going to be on the 4th of March. We'll be offering that online to anyone who wishes to join us. And then, of course, the 27th of May will be our next one after that. And you can go to our website at crucialdimensions.com.au and you can sign up or register your interest for those public programs as well. So I'm going to just say a last call for some questions. Any questions you might have, please pop them into the chat. Thank you for joining us for this brief tour of Crucial Influence as a learning experience and a very, very practical set of tools based on the evidence of the last, as Joseph mentioned in that video, the last 30, 40 years in the social and behavioral sciences, but our own practical application of it as well. So let's just see here what we've got in the chat. Nikki says, is it essential to have crucial conversations training prior to doing this course? This is a great question, Nikki. And the answer is no. This course stands in its own right, this one-day program, but then all of the support around that stands in its own right. And I will say this to you, though, Nikki, in many cases, it leads to the Crucial Conversations training. We were working with very substantially over the last few years with one of our clients, and they started with this. One was in local government, one was in mining. They started with Crucial Influence learning and the conversations, the workshopping of leader cohorts around this wonderful social science model. And they very quickly realized that they needed the Crucial Conversations learning and practice to be established and embedded as a normal, celebrated, natural cultural practice in their organizations. And that was what was the amplifier, the accelerant, if you will, for the change that they needed. So hopefully that's helpful, Nikki. Thank you, Shane. It's great to meet you virtually. I'll discuss this. I appreciate that. Reach out to us if you'd like to talk further. Thank you, Shane. And thank you, Nikki. Yes, could be a way to influence decision makers for the Crucial Conversations course. Absolutely. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we'd love to discuss that consulting, but also, an introduction. Thank you very much indeed to you, one and all. See you again at our next webinar. And in the meantime, have a great Christmas, New Year holiday break too. Bye for now.